I had learned to live with my husband's absences. At first, Ethan Bennett's business trips lasted 3 or 4 days. Then they became a week. Sometimes 2. By the 4th year of our marriage, I had stopped asking when he would come home. His answer was always the same. As soon as this deal closes. But the deal never seemed to close. There was always another meeting, another lender, another crisis at Bennett Development. And, apparently, none of it could be handled without Ethan. I missed more than his presence in our bed. I missed having someone beside me at breakfast. I missed ordinary conversations that did not end with him checking his phone. Most of all, I missed the version of our marriage in which I still believed his absence meant he was working for our future. I did not understand that he was using those weeks away to build a future that did not include me. The first crack appeared late on a Friday evening. It happened inside an overcrowded subway train. Chapter 1. The carriage was already packed when I boarded at Westbridge Station. I had stayed late at the architectural consulting firm where I worked. A set of plans should have been finished 2 days earlier, and I had spent the evening correcting them. My shoulders ached. My phone was nearly dead. The train's heating system had turned the carriage into a sealed metal box. I squeezed into a narrow space beside the doors. Then I wrapped one hand around a metal pole. At the next stop, another wave of passengers pushed inside. Someone's briefcase struck my knee. A man apologized for stepping on my shoe. For several minutes, every unwanted touch felt like an unavoidable consequence of the crowd. That was why I initially ignored the pressure against my hip. Then it shifted. A hand moved slowly across the back of my coat. It settled lower. My grip tightened around the pole. I stepped forward, but there was nowhere to go. The passengers in front of me were pressed just as closely together. The hand followed. I turned toward the dark train window. I used the reflection to see the person behind me. Richard Bennett stood less than a foot away. My father-in-law had arrived in Silverhaven that afternoon. He had spent nearly a year overseeing Bennett Development's projects overseas. Ethan had told me Richard would stay with us for several weeks. I had assumed his driver would collect him from the airport. Richard was difficult to mistake for anyone else. Even at 60, he remained broad-shouldered and physically imposing. His silver hair was neatly cut. His suit was perfectly fitted. His expression was as composed as it appeared in every newspaper photograph. For several seconds, I tried to convince myself that I had misunderstood. The train was crowded. Perhaps he had lost his balance. Then his fingers pressed more firmly against me. I looked at his reflection again. He was not watching the floor. He was not watching the doors. He was watching my face in the glass. He knew who I was. My fingers locked around the pole. I held it so tightly that my joints began to ache. I wanted to turn around immediately, but the sheer impossibility of the situation held me still. This was Richard Bennett. He was the man Ethan had spent his entire life trying to impress. He had given the toast at our wedding. He had once placed a hand on my shoulder and told me I was part of the family. Now, he was using the crowd to find out whether I would stay silent. His hand moved again. That broke the spell. I twisted away and turned to face him. Richard. His face remained blank for half a second. Only then did his eyes widen. Claire? The surprise arrived too late. It's me, I said. My God. He withdrew his hand. I didn't recognize you. A few passengers glanced toward us. Richard immediately stepped back. Then he lowered his voice. You were facing away. I thought you were someone else. The excuse did not make his actions less disturbing. The train began slowing as it approached North Silverhaven Station. I moved toward the doors before they had fully opened. Then I pushed onto the platform with the departing crowd. Claire. I heard Richard following me. I kept walking. He caught up beside the escalator. Wait. Please. I turned because I wanted to hear what kind of lie he would offer next. Richard adjusted the cuff of his coat. It was a calm and familiar movement. I had seen him do it before board meetings and charity dinners. Do not call Ethan until we have discussed this properly, he said. Discussed what? A misunderstanding. You deliberately touched a woman who did not consent. His eyes moved toward the commuters passing behind me. Keep your voice down. Why? Because people are listening. That was his first genuine reaction. Not guilt. Not concern for what he had done. He was afraid of being recognized. Did you know it was me? I asked.
No.
He answered too quickly. Then why shouldn't I tell Ethan? He is under extraordinary pressure. Richard kept his voice low. The Halston acquisition is entering its final stage. Any unnecessary distraction could jeopardize months of work. I stared at him. You're worried this might distract him? I'm asking you not to turn an unfortunate mistake into a family crisis. You created the crisis. A flicker of anger passed through his eyes. It vanished almost immediately. Come home, he said. We can talk there.
No.
Claire, you are not getting into a car with me. I stepped closer. And you are not staying in my house tonight. The pleasant expression slipped from his face. It is Ethan's house. The words were spoken softly, but their meaning was unmistakable. Richard had provided the down payment. The title was in Ethan's name. I had lived there for 4 years. I had also paid thousands of dollars for renovations. But Richard still saw the property as something his family had permitted me to use. I stepped onto the escalator. It is my home, I said. You are not welcome in it. This time, he did not follow. Chapter 2. Richard's luggage had already been delivered. 2 black suitcases stood inside the guest room. They had been placed neatly beside the wardrobe. His assistant had even arranged a garment bag across the bed. I dragged everything into the hallway. My hands were still trembling when my phone rang. Ethan's name appeared on the screen. I almost answered immediately. Some instinctive part of me still expected my husband to protect me. I imagined telling him what had happened. I imagined hearing horror in his voice. Then I remembered Richard asking me not to call. I accepted the call. But I waited for Ethan to speak first.
Hey, he said.
Airport announcements sounded faintly behind him. Did Dad find you? I looked toward the bedroom door. What do you mean? He said he saw you entering the 3rd carriage at Westbridge. Richard had claimed he did not recognize me. Ethan continued, unaware of what he had revealed. He thought it would be easier to ride home with you instead of waiting for the driver. Did you two miss each other? No, I said. We didn't miss each other.
Good.
I was worried Dad would get annoyed. Richard had identified me before boarding. He had chosen the same carriage. Then he had positioned himself behind me. There had been no misunderstanding. Where are you? I asked. Chicago. How is the acquisition going? As well as anything involving Dad can go. He tried to laugh. The sound was strained. Did Richard tell you that he found me? He sent a message before the train left. Why? What exactly did he say? Claire, what is this about? Please answer me. Ethan exhaled. He said he recognized your blue scarf. He was going to surprise you. I touched the scarf still wrapped around my neck. Richard had seen enough to identify me before he ever placed a hand on me. Did something happen? Ethan asked. For 1 second, I thought I heard concern. Then he continued. Dad can be difficult, but don't start an argument while I'm away. I need him focused until Monday. Focused on the Halston acquisition? Of course. His response was too smooth. I'm tired, I said. Try to make him comfortable. He's staying for 3 weeks. No, he isn't. What? I said we'll talk tomorrow. I ended the call. For several minutes, I sat on the edge of the bed. My phone remained in my hand. I had not noticed how deeply my fingernails had pressed into my palm. When I opened it, I saw 4 red marks. Then I remembered the tablet Ethan used at home. It belonged to Bennett Development. He often left it in the desk drawer while traveling. The same work applications were installed on his phone, so he rarely took it with him. I had used it several times to check our shared calendar. I found it beneath a stack of property brochures. The screen unlocked with the code Ethan used for almost everything. Most of the company applications required separate passwords, but the family messaging account was still open. I searched Richard's name. Most of their exchanges concerned construction schedules and the Halston acquisition. I scrolled slowly. I was looking for anything connected to that evening. A conversation from 2 days earlier stopped me. Richard, I'll stay at the house and make sure she doesn't start asking questions. Ethan, she has no reason to. Richard, the lender called the landline last week. Ethan, Evelyn moved all future communication to my office number. Richard, and if Claire contacts the bank herself? Ethan, she won't. She believes the refinancing was completed months ago. Richard, everything needs to remain quiet until Monday. Ethan, once the final drawdown clears, it will be difficult to reverse. The messages did not explain everything, but they proved Richard's arrival was not merely a family visit. They were hiding something from me. A key turned in the front door downstairs. I returned the tablet to the drawer. Then I stepped into the hallway. Richard called my name from the entrance. I did not answer. He climbed the stairs carrying a small leather travel bag. When he reached the landing, he saw his suitcases outside the guest room. You moved my luggage. You're staying at a hotel. Ethan invited me. I didn't. This property belongs to my son. I held his gaze. What happens on Monday? The last trace of polite patience disappeared from his face. You went through Ethan's messages. What is the final drawdown? That is company business. Then why are you worried I might call a lender? Richard looked past me toward the bedroom. He knew where Ethan kept the tablet. What happened on the train has nothing to do with the company's financing, he said. I didn't say it did. You intended to. I intended to say that you recognized me before you boarded. His eyes narrowed. You should think carefully before making an accusation you cannot prove. Ethan already proved it. I touched my scarf. You told him you recognized this. Richard said nothing. His silence answered more clearly than another denial would have. Leave, I said. He placed the leather bag on the hallway table. Then he opened it. You are in more danger than you understand. Is that supposed to frighten me? It is supposed to make you listen. He removed a thin document folder. 7 months ago, Ethan formed a limited liability company. He paused. It is called CB Holdings. The initials were immediately recognizable.
Claire.
Ethan. Bennett. What does that have to do with me? You are listed as its sole member and managing member. Richard placed the folder on the table. Ethan appears only as the company's authorized representative and registered contact. I have never owned a holding company. You completed the formation documents. No, I didn't. Richard gave me a look that was almost pitying. That depends on what you believed you were signing. A memory surfaced. 7 months earlier, Ethan had brought home a stack of papers. He said they were connected to refinancing the house. He also mentioned something he called our family asset plan. Evelyn Shaw had joined us by video. She was Bennett Development's corporate attorney. During the call, I had shown my identification to the camera. I had answered several verification questions. Then I had entered a security code sent to my phone. Ethan turned the pages toward me. He pointed to each signature box. The call showed only the signature pages. I never saw the complete documents. What did he use those signatures for? I asked. CB Holdings became one of the borrowing entities for the Halston acquisition. How much? You do not need that information tonight. It is in my name. You should have read what you signed. The words erased the last trace of civility between us. You helped him. I helped structure a transaction. You helped him deceive me. Richard's mouth tightened. The acquisition is larger than your marriage. He spoke as if he were explaining something obvious. If it closes on Monday, the debt can be refinanced. Your exposure can then be removed. Can be, if you cooperate. He opened the folder. The document inside was title ratification and consent of sole member and managing member. My name appeared beneath the signature line. You came here to make me sign this. I came here to prevent a disaster. For whom? For everyone involved. I read the first page. The language stated that I had reviewed and approved every prior action taken by CB Holdings. Signing it would change everything. Whatever Ethan had done without my informed consent would become something I had formally approved. You want me to accept responsibility for documents I never saw. You are already responsible on paper. And this agreement protects you. Richard did not answer. The structure became clearer. Richard had helped Ethan arrange the financing, but he did not fully trust his son. If the acquisition failed, or if the deception was exposed, Richard wanted a signed ratification. He wanted proof that I had knowingly approved everything. He had not come to warn me. He had come to repair the weakness in their paperwork. I tore the unsigned signature page in half. Richard watched the pieces fall onto the table. That was the only easy solution, he said. For you. He reached for the remaining pages. I placed my hand over the folder. These documents are addressed to me. They belong to the company. The company you claim I own. Do not play games. I pointed toward the small security camera above the landing. Try to take them from me. I kept my eyes on his. Then we can both explain the situation to the police. Richard looked at the camera. Then he looked at my hand resting on the folder. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Finally, he withdrew his hand. The document mattered to him, but it did not matter enough for him to be recorded struggling with me over it. My son believes Monday will make him independent of me, he said. There was no pride in his voice, only resentment. He is mistaken. So you intended to use me against him. I intended to protect Bennett Development by sacrificing whichever person was easiest to blame. Richard closed the empty travel bag. Call a lawyer if that makes you feel safer. He lifted one suitcase. By the time your lawyer understands the financing structure, the money may already have moved. At the top of the stairs, he looked back. What happened on the train was a mistake. You recognized me before you boarded. His face remained unreadable. You should concentrate on the problem. You can still survive. Then he carried his luggage downstairs. Chapter 3. The front door closed behind Richard at 10:18 p.m. I locked it. Then I activated the security system and returned to the hallway. The unsigned agreement was still on the table. I photographed every page. I also photographed the torn signature sheet. Then I stored copies in two accounts Ethan could not access. The document identified CEB Holdings. It also named Northstar Private Credit and listed the date of Monday's final drawdown. More importantly, it showed that Bennett Development's attorneys still wanted my formal ratification. Their paperwork was not as secure as Richard wanted me to believe. I disconnected Ethan's tablet from the house network. I did not open any more company applications. Doing that might trigger a security alert. Instead, I used my own phone to search the Silverhaven corporate registry. CEB Holdings had been formed 7 months earlier. The public filing listed me as the sole member, managing member, and authorized signatory. Ethan was listed as the authorized representative and registered contact. The filing address was not our home. It was not Bennett Development's headquarters either. It belonged to a commercial registration service downtown. I searched my personal email for the name of that service. One result appeared in the deleted folder. It had been sent 5 months earlier. It had also been marked as read. Welcome to your secure corporate portal. I had never opened it. The recovery address belonged to Ethan. The phone number ended in the final 4 digits of his office line. He had used my email address to make it appear as though I controlled the company. Then he had redirected actual access to himself. I stopped searching. Then I called Natalie Reed. Natalie and I had been roommates in college. She now worked as a corporate accountant for a regional logistics company. She was not an investigator. She had never pretended to be one. But she understood financial documents far better than I did. She answered after several rings. Claire? I need you to tell me whether I'm panicking over nothing. That sounds like the kind of sentence people say when it isn't nothing. My husband may have created a company in my name. I took a breath. He may have used it to borrow money. The sleepiness vanished from her voice. Do you have anything in writing? A registry filing and an signed ratification agreement. Who gave you the agreement? Richard. Why? Because he wanted me to sign it. Natalie paused. Save copies somewhere Ethan cannot reach. I already did. Do not use a shared email account. I didn't. Good. I heard her moving on the other end of the call. Now tell me exactly what you remember signing. I described the supposed refinancing papers. I told her about the video call with Evelyn and the security code sent to my phone. Did anyone display the complete documents during the call? Natalie asked.
No.
I only saw the signature pages. Did anyone tell you that you were becoming the owner or guarantor of a company?
No.
Then I don't know what happened. She spoke carefully. They may have forged something. They may have attached your real signature to different documents. Or they may have misrepresented what you were approving. Her refusal to pretend she knew more than she did helped me think clearly. What should I do? You need a lawyer who handles financial fraud and marital property. Tonight, preserve everything you have. She continued. Tomorrow morning, contact someone qualified to tell you what can be stopped before Monday. The agreement names a lender. Do not call them yet, Natalie said. I don't know how they will interpret anything you say. Let a lawyer decide how to approach them. I opened the photographs again. The credit facility had a maximum principal amount of $8.4 million. The document did not state how much had already been advanced. It only said that the final drawdown was scheduled for Monday morning. There is another name on the agreement, I said. Whose? Evelyn Shaw. I knew Evelyn as Bennett Development's corporate counsel. Ethan mentioned her whenever he needed to explain a late meeting or a sudden trip. She was also the lawyer who had supervised my video identification. Her name appeared beneath the statement certifying that CEB Holdings had properly authorized the transaction. If she knew you had not reviewed the documents, tell the lawyer, Natalie said. Then she added, I can help you organize the records. But I'm not qualified to tell you what legal responsibilities she has. A new email appeared while we were speaking. It came from Ethan. Dad says you're upset. I'm coming home, so we can resolve this properly. I checked the time. It was almost 11. You said Ethan was in Chicago, Natalie said after I read the message aloud. That's what he told me. How quickly could he get home? Not this quickly. I opened our shared calendar. Most of Ethan's personal appointments had been deleted, but one automatically generated booking notice remained in the trash folder. Lakeshore Retreat confirmed a 2-night reservation under Ethan Bennett's name. The resort was less than an hour outside Silverhaven. The booking listed a second guest, Evelyn Shaw. I read the names again. There was no possibility that I had misunderstood them. Ethan had lied about Chicago. He had spent the weekend at a nearby resort with the woman who had supervised my identification. She had certified the company paperwork. She had also helped redirect the lender's calls away from me. Now Ethan was returning because Richard had told him I would not sign. Natalie, I said, I think Ethan and Evelyn are together. Can you leave the house? I could. Then pack what you need. Her voice was firm. Go somewhere they cannot easily reach you. Before I could answer, the security system chimed. A vehicle had entered the driveway. The camera showed Ethan stepping out of a dark sedan. He wore the same coat he had taken on his supposed trip to Chicago. The passenger door opened. Evelyn emerged carrying a leather document case. They did not touch.
They did not need to.
Their arrival together, close to midnight, said enough. Ethan looked directly into the door camera. Then he pressed the bell. My phone rang seconds later. Claire, he said when I answered. Open the door. Why is Evelyn with you? A brief silence followed. She is here as company counsel. At 11 o'clock on a Friday night? This cannot wait until morning. Through the camera, I watched Evelyn remove a folder from her case. Then she handed it to Ethan. Another agreement. Another signature they needed before Monday. Dad clearly handled this badly, Ethan said. His voice softened into the patient tone he used whenever he wanted me to believe he was being reasonable. You're frightened. I understand why. He paused. Let me come inside and explain before you make a decision none of us can undo. You told me you were in Chicago. The location of the meetings is not the issue. You were at Lakeshore Retreat with Evelyn. Ethan turned slightly away from the camera. When he spoke again, the warmth in his voice sounded carefully manufactured. Once lawyers become involved, I may not be able to shield you from the consequences of documents that carry your signature. He was still pretending to protect me, but the threat underneath was unmistakable. I activated the secondary door lock. You're right, I said. This cannot wait. Relief briefly crossed his face. Then I continued. My lawyer will contact you in the morning. Claire, listen to me. I ended the call. Then I switched off the porch light. On the security feed, Ethan remained at the door. His phone was still pressed to his ear. Evelyn stood behind him. She clutched the document case against her chest. For 4 years, the Bennett family had treated my trust as something they could borrow, something they could spend, something they could replace whenever it suited them. They were about to discover that I had finally started keeping records. Chapter 4. Ethan remained outside for another 11 minutes. I watched him through the security feed. He called twice more. Then he sent a series of messages. Please open the door. You do not understand what Dad has done. Evelyn can explain the documents. Do not involve strangers in a private family matter. The last message arrived just before he returned to the car. If you damage this acquisition, hundreds of employees could lose their jobs. There it was. Not an apology. Not even a question about what Richard had done to me on the train. Only another reason I was expected to remain silent. I packed my passport, tax records, laptop, and medication. Then I added several changes of clothes. Before leaving, I photographed every room. I also recorded a slow video showing the condition of the house. Natalie stayed on the phone while I carried my bags through the side entrance. Ethan's sedan was already gone. At 12:14 a.m., I pulled out of the driveway. Then I headed toward Natalie's apartment. I had lived in that house for 4 years. But as I drove away, I finally understood that I had never possessed the security I thought it represented. The title belonged to Ethan. The mortgage documents had passed through his hands. Even the front door system had been installed through an account linked to Bennett Development. My name was on a company I had never knowingly formed. Yet almost nothing I had built with my own money seemed to be under my control. Natalie lived in a modest building near the University District. She met me in the underground garage. She was wearing sweatpants and an old college sweatshirt. She did not ask whether I was all right. She took one look at my face and lifted the smaller suitcase from my trunk. Come upstairs, she said. In her kitchen, we spread everything across the table. The photographed agreement, the registry filing, the timeline of messages. Natalie read everything twice. This is not an ordinary housekeeping document, she said. She pointed to the ratification agreement. They need you to confirm past actions. That means someone involved in the transaction is uncomfortable with the authority they already have. Richard said the money would move Monday. Then we have 1 weekend. Can anything be done before offices open? I know someone who can tell us. The person she called was Maya Torres. Natalie's company had hired Maya during an internal embezzlement investigation 2 years earlier. Natalie did not describe her as a miracle worker. She warned me that Maya might not take the case. She also warned me that an emergency consultation would be expensive. At that point, the price was the least frightening part of my situation. Maya returned the call at 7 the next morning. She asked me to send only 2 documents through her firm's secure portal, the registry filing, and the unsigned ratification agreement. After reviewing them, she arranged a video meeting for 9. Maya appeared on screen from a quiet office. Her dark hair was tied back. A mug of coffee sat beside her laptop. She listened without interrupting. I described the refinancing meeting. I explained the video identification. Then I told her about Richard's visit and Ethan's messages. When I finished, Maya looked down at her notes. I need to separate what we know from what we suspect, she said. She spoke slowly and clearly. The public filing shows you as the sole member and managing member of CEB Holdings. She tapped her pen against the desk. The ratification agreement suggests that someone has concerns about whether prior actions were properly authorized. Does that prove fraud?
No.
She shook her head. It does not automatically prove fraud. I understand, but it gives us a legitimate reason to notify the lender. About what? That you dispute the company's authority to complete any further borrowing. Can that stop Monday's transfer? It may. Maya did not offer false reassurance. The lender could ignore us. They could ask for more evidence. Or they could pause the transaction while they investigate. She leaned closer to the screen. We should not promise more than that. Maya instructed me to prepare a written declaration. It would describe exactly what I remembered signing. She also asked for copies of my identification records, tax returns, and any correspondence related to the supposed refinancing. What about the police? I asked. We may file a report.
She paused.
but I want the facts organized first. A vague accusation made in panic can create confusion. A documented complaint is harder to dismiss. She sent a preservation notice to everyone involved.
Ethan.
Evelyn, Richard, Bennett Development, CB Holdings, North Star Private Credit. The notice demanded that they preserve all relevant material, emails, messages, video recordings, signing logs, and every version of the documents shown during my identification call. She also sent North Star a formal notice. It stated that I disputed having authorized the final drawdown. The notice did not accuse the lender of wrongdoing. It simply informed them of one fact. The person listed as sole member and managing member denied approving the transaction they intended to fund. At 10:37 a.m., Ethan called. Maya told me I did not have to answer, but she also explained that anything he voluntarily admitted could matter. I put the call on speaker. Then I started recording. Maya had already confirmed that local law allowed one-party consent. "Where are you?" Ethan asked. "I'm safe. You left the house in the middle of the night. You came home with Evelyn after lying about being in Chicago. She was there because Dad created a legal emergency." "Did he create CB Holdings too?" Ethan went silent. I looked at Maya's face on the screen. She gave no signal. She did not speak. "You signed the documents," Ethan said eventually. "I signed what you told me were refinancing papers. They were part of a broader asset structure. You never told me I was becoming the sole owner of a company." I paused. "You never told me it was borrowing millions of dollars. We discussed protecting family assets."
No, Ethan.
"You discussed lowering our mortgage rate." He exhaled sharply. "This is exactly why I did not explain every detail." His voice became patronizing. "You hear one complicated phrase and assume someone is attacking you." The familiar tone almost worked. For years, Ethan had treated confusion as proof that I was unreasonable. Whenever I asked about company finances, he made the subject sound painfully technical. Eventually, questioning him became embarrassing. This time, I let the silence stretch. He filled it. "The company is temporary," he said. "Once Halston closes, the loan will be moved into the main group." Why is my signature still needed? Dad is being excessively cautious. Then you do need it. I need you to stop making decisions based on fear. You mean I should sign before I understand what I'm accepting? I mean you should trust your husband. You used that trust already.
His voice lowered.
Did you contact North Star? Maya wrote a sentence on a sheet of paper. Then she held it toward the camera. "Do not answer." "I'm not discussing my legal communications with you," I said. "Legal communications?" That phrase frightened him more than anything else I had said. "Claire, listen carefully." His voice became urgent. "If the drawdown fails, Bennett Development could lose the deposit on Halston." He continued without pausing. "The sellers could sue. North Star could declare a default across the entire facility. Then you should have considered that before using my name." I was protecting our future.
No.
You were protecting the transaction. They are the same thing. That sentence told me more about our marriage than any confession could have. To Ethan, there was no difference between the company's interests and mine. Whatever benefited Bennett Development was supposed to benefit me automatically, even when the method involved lies, even when it involved false authority, even when it exposed me to millions of dollars in debt. "Where is the original recording of the video signing call?" I asked. "Evelyn has it." "Was the complete agreement displayed?" "I don't remember." "You remember every detail of an acquisition worth millions." I leaned closer to the phone. "But you don't remember what your wife was shown before signing?" His patience broke. "Do you have any idea what I have sacrificed to get this far?" I looked at Maya. For the first time, her expression changed. Not because Ethan sounded guilty, because he sounded sincere. He truly believed that he was the person being wronged. "I know what you were willing to sacrifice," I said. "You put her name on the documents." I ended the call. Less than an hour later, North Star Private Credit acknowledged Maya's notice. The message was brief. Pending review of the disputed authority, no additional funds would be released from the CB Holdings facility. The final drawdown had not been permanently cancelled, but it had been stopped. For the moment, Monday belonged to us. Chapter 5. Richard contacted me that afternoon. He did not call directly. A woman from his office sent Maya a request for a confidential meeting. Maya rejected the word confidential. She agreed only if the conversation took place through her office. Both sides would also have attorneys present. Richard joined the video call at 4. He sat inside a dark-paneled conference room at Bennett Development's headquarters. Beside him was an attorney named Harold Grant. Harold had represented the Bennett family for more than 20 years. Richard looked rested. Only the absence of his usual smile revealed that North Star's decision had affected him. "Claire," he began, "this situation has moved far beyond a disagreement between family members. It became more than that when you put a company in my name." "Ethan put the company in your name. You structured the financing." Harold raised one hand. "We are not here to assign blame." His voice was calm and formal. "We are here to prevent unnecessary losses." Maya leaned forward. "My client received a ratification agreement," she continued before Harold could interrupt. "It demanded that she approve transactions she says were concealed from her." Maya closed the folder in front of her. "Until we receive the underlying records, no further authorization will be given." Richard's gaze remained on me. "The Halston acquisition is worth nearly $200 million, he said. "If it collapses because of your notice, the consequences will not be limited to Ethan." "Then why did he use my identity?" "You benefited from Bennett Development for years." I almost laughed. "Is that your legal explanation?" "It is a fact." Richard began counting the benefits as if he were reading from a ledger. "The house, your standard of living, your access to opportunities. I had a career before I married Ethan. And you married into a family whose resources improved your life." There it was. The Bennett calculation. Every gift had been entered into a private ledger. Every holiday created a debt. Every home repair created a debt. Every introduction created a debt. And all of those debts were supposed to be repaid through obedience. Richard continued. "I am prepared to guarantee that CEB Holdings will be released from the facility after closing. Personally, through Bennett Development." Maya spoke before I could answer. "Then provide a written and unconditional indemnity." She continued. "It must be approved by the board. We also require full disclosure of the existing loan documents." Harold looked toward Richard. Neither man responded. Maya closed her notebook. "That is what I thought." Richard's expression tightened. "What would it take for you to withdraw the notice?" "Full records," Maya said. She listed them one by one. Every formation document. Every signing log. Every video file. Then she continued. Every loan agreement. Every disbursement record. And every communication involving Claire's supposed approval. That could take weeks. You expected her to accept $8.4 million of potential liability in one evening. Richard ignored her. He looked directly into the camera. "Claire, Ethan has made serious mistakes." His voice softened. "I am not denying that." It was the closest Richard Bennett had ever come to admitting fault. But he has placed himself in a position he cannot control. Richard folded his hands. "Withdraw the notice. Sign the ratification." He paused. "In return, I will ensure that you receive the house free of debt." He added another offer. A substantial settlement. And a clean divorce. The word struck me with surprising force. Not because I wanted the offer. Because Richard had reduced my marriage to a transaction. He did not even pretend otherwise. "You already decided Ethan and I are getting divorced. After what has happened, reconciliation seems unrealistic." "You mean after I found out?" "You can leave this family financially secure, while taking responsibility for your financing. The agreement can be revised."
"How?"
Richard paused. That pause was enough. The house and settlement would not be gifts. They would be payment for my signature. Payment for my silence. Maya answered for me. "My client will not negotiate a personal settlement in exchange for validating disputed corporate acts." Richard leaned back. "You are giving her dangerous advice." "I am giving her independent advice." Maya's voice remained calm. "That is what your son tried to prevent her from obtaining." For the first time, Richard lost control of his expression. He turned toward Harold. The meeting ended 3 minutes later. That evening, Ethan cut off my access to our joint checking account. I discovered it while trying to pay for a hotel room near Maya's office. My debit card was declined. Then, the banking application stopped displaying the account. Natalie paid for the room before I could argue. "This is not charity," she said. She handed her card to the clerk. "You can repay me after your husband stops behaving like a criminal." Maya immediately sent a demand to Ethan's lawyer. No marital funds were to be transferred, hidden, or dissipated. She also told me to move my salary into a new account. Then she helped me place fraud alerts on my credit files. By Sunday morning, Ethan had changed tactics. His messages became apologetic. I should have explained the structure. Dad pressured me to close the deal. Evelyn told me the documents were standard. "Come home, and we can fix this without destroying everything." I stared at that final sentence. He had not written everything we built. He had not written our marriage. He had only written everything. The company, the acquisition, and his position inside the Bennett family. I did not respond. At noon, an unknown number called Maya's office. The caller was Evelyn Shaw. Chapter 6. Evelyn refused to speak with me directly. She asked for a separate conversation with Maya. Her newly retained attorney would also be present. 2 hours later, Maya called me into the small conference room beside her office. "She has information," Maya said. "Is she cooperating?" "Not yet." Maya placed a folder on the table. "She is protecting herself." I had expected anger when I finally heard Evelyn's name discussed openly. Until then, she had been a signature on a document. A woman beside my husband. Instead of anger, I felt tired. What does she want? She wants to know whether you intend to report her to the state bar. That depends on what she did. Good answer. According to Maya, Evelyn claimed Ethan had misled her. He told Evelyn that I understood the company structure. He also claimed I had agreed to hold CB Holdings temporarily. Evelyn admitted that the video call had been described as part of a refinancing and estate planning package. But she insisted that she believed Ethan had explained the business purpose to me privately. She certified that I approved documents she never showed me. Yes. How could she think that was acceptable? She says the signature packet contained links to the complete documents. I never received any links. That is the problem. The signing platform showed that the links had been sent to an email account resembling mine. My real address ended in .net. The address used for the documents ended in .com. Ethan controlled the false account. The identity verification had been sent to my real phone. Ethan had placed the device in front of me. He watched me enter the code. Then he took the phone back and said he was opening the confirmation screen. The process created an official record. It showed that I had personally verified my identity, but the complete documents had gone somewhere else. Did Evelyn know the email was false? I asked. She says no. Do you believe her? Maya considered the question. I believe she did not ask questions she had a professional duty to ask. That was not the same as innocence. Evelyn had more to fear than disciplinary action. She had signed a legal opinion. That opinion stated that CB Holdings had validly authorized the loan. If North Star had relied on it, the lender could pursue Evelyn and her firm for its losses. Maya placed a printed email on the table. Evelyn had provided it through her attorney. It was from Richard. He had sent it 3 months earlier. Make sure Claire's approval cannot be challenged later. Ethan has become careless where she is concerned. Below it was Evelyn's reply. The ratification before closing will address any weakness. Richard had known that the existing authorization might not survive scrutiny. That was why he had brought the agreement to the house. Another email showed Ethan refusing to delay the transaction. She will sign. She always does. I read the sentence 3 times. It was not dramatic. There was no insult. There was no declaration that I was foolish. That made it worse. My obedience had become an assumption built into an acquisition worth nearly $200 million. Why is Evelyn giving us this? I asked. Because Ethan and Richard are already blaming each other, Maya said. She opened another folder. Richard's lawyer claims Evelyn designed the process. Ethan claims he relied entirely on her advice. Maya looked at me. She has realized that they intend to leave her carrying the professional liability. And the resort?
Maya es met mine.
Evelyn says the relationship began 4 months ago. The affair had started after CEB Holdings was formed, but it began before the final loan documents were prepared. It did not excuse anything. It did explain why Evelyn had crossed lines she might once have respected. Her legal judgment had become tied to Ethan's promises about their future. She says he told her Halston would make him chief executive. Maya continued. Once Richard lost control, Ethan planned to appoint her general counsel of the combined company. So, they were taking the company from Richard. That appears to have been Ethan's plan. And Richard knew? Not all of it. The father had built the structure. The son intended to use it to remove him. Both of them placed the risk in my name. Neither believed I was capable of discovering what they had done. Evelyn agreed to provide the original video call recording. She also agreed to provide the signing platform logs and several communications. In exchange, she wanted Maya to inform prosecutors that she had cooperated voluntarily. Maya made no promises about what the authorities would do. By Sunday evening, we understood the basic scheme. CEB Holdings had been presented to Northstar as an independent entity. According to the paperwork, I controlled it. That supposed independence allowed the lender to treat part of the Halston acquisition separately. It would not count against Bennett Development's existing debt limits in the same way. In reality, Ethan controlled CEB Holdings. He used the false email address. He also used his position as authorized representative. The first loan advances had moved through CEB Holdings. From there, the money supported Bennett Development's deposit and transaction expenses. Monday's final drawdown would complete the acquisition. If the deal succeeded, Ethan planned to merge CEB Holdings into the new corporate structure. Then my role would disappear. If the deal failed, the Bennett family had another option. They could claim that I had acted independently as CEB's sole member. The ratification agreement would have made that argument much stronger. Evelyn believed the acquisition would succeed. Richard planned for the possibility that it would not. Ethan planned to defeat Richard. No one planned for me to refuse the final signature. Chapter 7. Monday morning began with 3 competing meetings. Northstar's credit committee met at 8. Bennett Development's board met at 8:30. The Halston sellers had given the company until noon to confirm funding. Maya and I joined Northstar's meeting by video. Evelyn participated from her attorney's office. Richard, Ethan, and Bennett Development's counsel appeared from separate rooms. The arrangement said more about the state of the Bennett family than any public statement could have. Northstar's lead attorney began with the signing logs. Mrs. Bennett, did you control the email address used to receive the loan documents?
No.
Did you authorize anyone to create it?
No.
Did you know CEB Holdings had been formed before Friday evening?
No.
Ethan interrupted. She signed the operating agreement. His lawyer reached toward him, but Ethan continued. She completed identity verification. He leaned toward his camera. She knew we were restructuring family assets. Maya displayed the video recording Evelyn had provided. On screen, I sat beside Ethan at our dining room table. Evelyn appeared in a smaller box at the top of the screen. Ethan spoke first in the recording. These are the final refinancing and estate planning signatures we discussed. Evelyn did not correct him. The screen showed only signature blocks. There was no company name. There was no loan amount. There was no personal guarantee. Northstar's attorney stopped the video. Miss Shaw, did you understand that Mrs. Bennett believed she was signing residential refinancing documents? Evelyn looked toward her lawyer. I understood that Mr. Bennett had explained the broader structure to her. Did you confirm that with Mrs. Bennett?
No.
Did you display the complete loan documents?
No.
Richard's attorney tried to distance Bennett Development from the process. This was handled by Ethan Bennett and outside counsel.
He paused.
There was no formal board authorization. Ethan turned toward his camera. That is a lie. His lawyer tried to stop him. Ethan ignored him. Richard approved the structure. Northstar's attorney displayed the email Richard had sent Evelyn. Make sure Claire's approval cannot be challenged later. For several seconds, no one spoke. Richard's expression did not change, but the muscles along his jaw tightened. The credit committee suspended the entire CEB Holdings facility. It also reserved the right to declare the existing advances immediately due. At 9:12, Bennett Development's board received the same records. 3 independent directors demanded that Ethan and Richard leave the meeting. The board needed to consider an emergency resolution. Richard refused at first. Then the company's outside counsel reminded him of the consequences. If he remained, any later decision could be challenged. At 9:46, both men were placed on administrative leave. An independent investigation would begin immediately. Evelyn was also suspended as corporate counsel. At 10:03, the Halston sellers received formal notice. Funding would not be available by noon. The acquisition collapsed. Ethan called me immediately. I declined the call. He left a voicemail. "You have no idea what you've done." His voice shook with anger. "Dad will survive this. Evelyn will find another firm."
He paused.
"I am the one who loses everything." Not once did he mention what I had almost lost. At 11:20, Richard called from a different number. I answered with Maya beside me. "You destroyed an acquisition that took 18 months to build," he said.
No.
"I refuse to approve one I was never told about. You could have protected yourself without stopping the transaction. By trusting you to remove my liability afterward, I gave you my word. You also told me you did not recognize me on the train." Silence followed. The incident had seemed separate from the financing. Now I understood the connection. It was not strategy. It was character. Richard crossed boundaries because he believed power would protect him from consequences. He had treated my body that way. He had treated my home that way. He had treated my identity and signature the same way. They were things he could use first, then explain later. "You are making this personal," he said. "It became personal when you put my name on the debt." "I did not put it there. You knew it was there." I kept my voice steady. "You knew the approval was weak. Instead of telling me, you tried to make me validate it." Richard's voice became colder. "Ethan will blame you for the rest of his life. That is no longer my problem." I ended the call. By Monday afternoon, North Star had referred the matter to federal investigators. The transaction involved electronic communications. It also involved funds moving across state lines. Maya filed a civil action. We asked the court to declare that I had not authorized CEB Holdings' disputed transactions. She also requested temporary orders. Ethan would not be allowed to move marital assets. He would also be prevented from accessing accounts held in my name. The court granted limited emergency relief that evening. It did not resolve the case. It simply stopped the Bennetts from changing the facts while the investigation continued. For the first time since Friday, I slept for more than 3 consecutive hours. Chapter 8. The investigation lasted 9 months. Bennett Development survived. But it was no longer the company Richard had spent his life building. The failed Halston acquisition cost the company its deposit. Several lenders withdrew. 2 major partners suspended new projects. Eventually, the independent directors forced Richard to resign as chairman. He tried to describe the decision publicly as retirement. No one believed him. Additional complaints surfaced after news of the subway investigation became public. 2 former employees accused Richard of similar conduct at company events. A hotel employee also provided security footage supporting one of the complaints. Richard was never convicted over what happened to me on the train. The carriage cameras had not captured the contact clearly enough. No passenger came forward as a direct witness. But his denial no longer protected his reputation. The image of the disciplined founder disappeared. So did the image of a man who valued family and tradition. In its place was someone very different. A man who had spent decades believing that other people's silence belonged to him. Ethan faced more serious consequences. The signing platform records showed that he controlled CEB Holdings. So did the false email account. The transfers also showed that he controlled the money. Yet he had represented to North Star that I was in charge. At first, Ethan claimed I had agreed verbally. Then investigators recovered his messages to Evelyn. In those messages, he admitted that I did not understand the documents. He also said I would sign whatever he placed in front of me. His lawyers eventually advised him to stop blaming me. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy and fraud-related charges that allowed him to avoid a longer trial. His sentence included prison time. He was also ordered to pay restitution. After his release, he would face restrictions on serving as an officer of certain financial or regulated companies. Evelyn cooperated with investigators. Her cooperation reduced her criminal exposure, but it did not save her career. She lost her position at Bennett Development. She also accepted a multi-year suspension of her law license. The last time I saw her was during a deposition. She looked older than she had outside my house that Friday night. During a break, she spoke to me. I believed Ethan was going to change everything. For whom? I asked. She did not answer. Perhaps it was the first time she had asked herself the question honestly. My civil case against CEB Holdings and North Star ended differently than I had feared. North Star had failed to verify the email discrepancy. The address used by the company did not match my identification records. The lender also possessed internal notes. Those notes questioned why Ethan controlled every conversation when I was supposedly the sole member. Faced with the signing logs and Evelyn's testimony, North Star changed its position. It agreed that I would not be personally responsible for the disputed facility. CEB Holdings was dissolved after the remaining claims were resolved. My name disappeared from the registry. The divorce took longer. Ethan fought over the house. He fought over the retirement accounts. He fought over almost every object that could be assigned a price. He claimed Bennett family funds had purchased the property. He also argued that my contributions were insignificant. Maya produced 4 years of records, bank transfers, renovation invoices, tax documents. The court did not give me everything, but it gave me enough. The house was sold. The remaining equity was divided as part of the marital settlement. Ethan's attempts to move joint funds after I left were counted against his share. I did not ask to keep the property. By then, I understood why I had spent so many years calling it home. I was afraid that admitting otherwise would mean my marriage had failed. But a home should not require permission from the person whose father paid the deposit. Natalie helped me find a smaller apartment near my office. On the first night, I ate takeout on the floor. My furniture had not arrived yet. The living room echoed. The kitchen light flickered. The upstairs neighbor walked as if he were testing a pair of heavy boots. It was still the safest place I had lived in years. Nothing inside it belonged to Ethan. No camera account was connected to Bennett Development. No document waited in a drawer with my signature beneath words I had never read. My life did not become perfect after the divorce. For months, I woke whenever a car entered the parking lot. Crowded trains made my chest tighten. At first, I changed my commute. Later, I began working with a therapist. Eventually, I learned to ride the subway again without watching every reflection in the windows. I also had to confront the part of myself that still felt ashamed. Not because I had caused what happened, because I had trusted people who used that trust against me. My therapist corrected me every time I called trust a mistake. Trust is not the crime, she said. Deception is. It took time before I believed her. A year after that Friday evening, I stood in a conference room at the architectural firm. I was presenting plans for a mixed-use housing project. The development was smaller than Halston. It would never appear in national business newspapers. No one in the room spoke about controlling an empire. The project included affordable apartments. It also included a childcare center and public space along the river. When the presentation ended, the client approved the design. There were only minor revisions. My colleagues applauded. Later that evening, Natalie and I celebrated at a restaurant across from Westbridge Station. You know, she said, raising her glass, for someone who supposedly could not understand complicated documents, you handled the last year rather well. I had help. You also learned to read every page. That lesson was expensive. We laughed. Through the window, commuters moved in and out of the station. For a moment, I saw my reflection overlaid against them. I was not the woman who had frozen inside that crowded carriage. I was not Ethan's convenient signature. I was not Richard's silent daughter-in-law. I had a career. I had an apartment. I had friends who told me the truth. And I had a future no one else had designed without my knowledge. My phone vibrated. It was an automated notice. The final account associated with CEB Holdings had been closed. I read the message once. Then I deleted it. Natalie raised an eyebrow. Anything important? No, I said. And for the first time, that was true.